G'day everyone. So, as I said, my name's Dave Sammut. I'm a long-standing chemist. I've worked 20 plus years in industry. I've been in commercial industry. Now, I am recording today because this is part of a lecture series that's to go online to be a resource for young scientists. And particularly, today's talk is targeted at young scientists, particularly those who are making the transition into industry, from university into industry, or at least are planning that transition. Now, when I was a young chemist, I was brash, prickly. I was not well prepared for the workforce, and I was extraordinarily lucky to land a beautiful R&D role right out of the gates in a company that would forgive my many mistakes, a company that would forgive my many personality defects, and allow me to grow rapidly to build a really successful career. Most of us won't be that lucky. And frankly, there was no intent, there was nothing but dumb luck in the fact that I managed that. Along the way, I have done all sorts of things. I have been a professional recruitment consultant. I have run teams of up to 60 people. And along the way, I've probably hired, let's say, between 100 and 150 people over the years for various roles. So I've seen thousands of resumes. I have interviewed many hundreds of candidates, and you see patterns emerging, and particularly for young people, whether they're scientists or not, but for young people making the transition from university into the workplace, the single most defining characteristic is ill-preparedness. Most people don't understand what they need to be delivering to get that job, and they're not well prepared for the job search process, so that they make it hard for themselves, and they make it harder than it needs to be, is what I'm trying to say. So the purpose of today's lecture is to try and give you the insights in what an employer is looking for and how you can give yourself the significant advantage so that you can shorten your job search. Because I know, I've been there and I've seen my friends around, looking for work is soul destroying. Getting rejected for jobs is incredibly hard. Even if you've got an ego as large as mine, it's still hard, right? So I would spare you any pain that I could. And the whole purpose of today is that. Now, I've split the presentation into three basic sections. Understanding the job market, actually understanding what it is that we're looking at, about finding the job or applying for work, and about securing the job. So understanding how it all works, how to look for the job, and how to make that application, and then once you've got your interview, actually what to do in an interview to really distinguish yourself. And I will say, right from the get-go, 4 good applications are better than 100 crap ones. You are far more likely to get a job in 4 good applications than in 100 bad ones. So you can save yourself a lot of pain, and getting rejected 99 times will hurt. I don't care who you are. So much better to make it easy on yourself. Okay, so starting with understanding the job market. I'm going to start with some statistics and some information that is going to scare the hell out of you. At least it will if I've done my job right. Because I want to emphasise, I want you to understand just how hard it can be. When you come out of university, if you were anything like I was, you assume, I've done my degree, now someone's going to give me a job. And that is not the way it works. Flat. It is not the way it works. There are going to be hundreds of other people looking for that same darn job that you are, and you have to be right at the top to get there. Now that doesn't mean you have to be the top student. I was not the top student at university. I had a couple of Fs, I had a couple of PCs, I had a mixture of others. I did have a couple of HDs in there as well, but I was not a flash student. Yet, I have gone on to an incredibly successful career, and it's been a very long time since anyone asked me, how did you go at university? Along the way, I'm going to try and amuse you just a little bit, and I hope that works, because this is supposed to be an interesting and entertaining conversation. So yes, stand back, we're going to try science. Okay, now this is a thing that always amazes me. At university, a typical student, now I'm going to put that, you can't actually see it at the bottom of this, but it does actually say these statistics have been made up for the purposes of emphasising a point. A typical student would spend over 3,000 hours attending lectures. They would spend easily a couple of thousand hours studying. If you're like me, You've spent how many tens of thousands of dollars on your degree? You've probably spent as much again on booze down the university bar. You've put a hell of an investment into your university education, and you get to the end of it, and how much effort does most candidates put into their job application process? And the answer is stuff all, and it's evident. You need to treat the process of looking for work as a job in itself. That's a key message. Now, these are tough times. These are some statistics. I got it from an organisation called graduatecareers.com.au. I will be peppering this with statistics, and this presentation will be available online, so you don't necessarily need to make notes. Feel free to do so if you wish to. The decline in graduate employment over the last few years has been severe. This is top 500 top employers who have graduate programs, and look at the decline in the number of employers taking grads. Right? This is the percentage of people who do not take grads, and it's climbing. Right? Your pool of available jobs is shrinking rapidly. Overwhelming competition. When you come out of university, you're not just competing against the people in your class. You are competing against every other graduate who came out from university at the same time. You're competing against the graduates who racked off to Europe to bum around for a year. You're competing against all of the very welcome recent immigrants who have come to the country and are desperate to make their start in this country. Now, I'll say right from the get-go, immigration is a good thing. It enhances a country's capabilities and aspects in every way. But when it comes to you guys looking for work, those recent immigrants, they're coming in with more experience than you. They're coming in with, frankly, most often more drive than you. They desperately want their start in this company, in this country, and they are going to work their asses off to beat you out for those jobs. In Australia in 2012, we produced 174,000 graduates. 174,000 graduates. And for every single application that you make for an advertised position, you should be expecting to compete against at least 100 other candidates, which means just to get a phone call, you have to be in the top 5% of the applicants. Now again, that doesn't mean top 5% of results on paper. It's top 5% of most suitable for the role. And all about today is to try and help you show how you are the most suitable for the role, to help give you those skills so that you can bring yourself forward. I'm seeing some glum faces. It means I'm doing it right. This is from Graduate Careers. This is the median period of unemployment for recent graduates after 6 months. 6 months out from university, 20%, 1 in 5 candidates is still looking for work. That should terrify you. 6 months? That's soul-destroying unemployment. Now, the longest I have ever been unemployed across the entire career is 3 weeks. Hopefully I can give you I can help you with the sort of skills that will concertina your period of unemployment down. The last time I was made redundant, and I will say I have been made redundant 4, 5 times in my career. I don't remember exactly. Getting made redundant will happen to everyone. You don't just get one job and that's the rest of your job to life. It will happen to everyone. Think of it as a good thing. Every time I have been made unemployment, it has been a net benefit to my life. So, you know, embrace change is what I say, and be prepared for this. Be prepared for the job search process. Employment outcomes after 4 months. So this is part of a survey that was done by Graduate Careers. Now, after 4 months, only 48% of candidates were actually full-time employed, right? Some were, had gone back to full-time study. Some had made themselves unavailable. Some were working part-time and seeking full-time. But the key thing is only 48%. I mean, most of us, I would assume, coming out of university, are going to want a full-time permanent position. And it's not easy. It's frankly not easy. As I said, about 20% of candidates will go back to university. Now, going back to university may be a good thing. It may be that which suits you. It may be that you are oriented towards research. Indeed, many of you, given that you are working for places like NMI, CSIRO, what is it, AAO, is it? All right, astronomy. Many of you will be research oriented. Many of you will be hoping for academic careers. That's a fine thing. I am not in any way knocking academic careers. Today's talk is mostly about commercial careers. And one thing I'd say right from the get-go is you need to plan what you want your career to be in one respect. In Australia, academic and commercial are virtually 100% isolated. It is very difficult, except in the first years of your career, to go from one to the other. 20 years into your career, there is no chance. So you have to decide which path you want to go down. Now, for instance, PhDs. 1 in 7 PhDs will get a job in academia. The other 6 in 7 will have to try and find a job in the commercial world. Why are people going back to university? Is it because they genuinely want to do further study, which is a perfectly reasonable thing? Or is it because they spent a few months looking for work, I couldn't find work, I'll go back to university and see if getting an extra degree will help? And the answer is probably not. Higher degrees can, now I'm going to talk all about stereotypes today, but higher degrees can actually hinder your job search process. When I was working in recruitment, approximately 50% of Australian companies would say to me, don't send me a PhD. There is a bias against PhDs in Australia, and I'm going to come to that, talk about that in Australia. But all I'm saying, throughout the course of this talk, I'm going to talk about generalities, I'm going to talk about stereotypes, I'm going to talk about things that can be viewed one way or another. But the key thing is, nothing you do should make you feel trapped. The great thing about life is that there's this view, one door closes, another door opens, as if there's this long corridor of serial doors. It's not like that. Life, you are surrounded by open doors every day of your life, and you get to choose which open doors that you go through. Now, sometimes your choices will close doors for you, but I want to, at the end of today, I want you to feel inspired that there are a myriad of options available to you. There are all sorts of things that you can do if you want to, but you need to plan for what you want to do. So, for instance, if you lived in America, academia and commercial are very, very linked. Having a PhD in America is a good thing. It gets you extra respect, probably gets you extra money. In Australia, it's not the same. So you need to plan for where you're going to work, how you're going to work, and being aware of what the stereotypes are for your situation, then you can address them and you can plan for them, and so that you can choose which open doors you want to take. Okay, so I've said higher degrees can be beneficial, particularly if you've got a couple of years of experience under your belt and you go back to university. That can work very much in your favour. But just going back to university and doing an extra degree because you couldn't find a job won't necessarily help you. So it's all about planning and being aware of what you want to do. Okay, so the recruitment market, the job market. A key message from today is the job search process is nothing personal. This is business. This is not about you. I am an employer, and I'm going to talk to you today as an employer. When I advertise a position, I'm going to see 50, 100, sometimes many hundreds of applications. I once advertised a graduate chemist position and had 450 applications for one job. I can't afford to care about the individuals because I'm sure that all 450 of those individuals are worthy, deserving people. But my job is not... I can't afford to care about you all. This is a business transaction, and business is impersonal. So when we go through this process, the best thing that you can do is show how you as an investment are worth an investment, how you as a business asset will be worth acquiring into that job. Think of yourself as a business asset, okay? It costs a buttload of money to hire even a graduate chemist, even a graduate scientist, I should say, right? Or even a graduate of any form, right? There is the opportunity cost. If I hire this person over that person, there is lost productivity. I can guarantee that any new person I hire on day one will be more of a drain on my business than a help. There is an old joke that the graduate engineer, Jess, turns up to her first day on the job, And the foreman hands her a broom. But I'm a graduate engineer. He says, I'm so sorry. He said, this is how you use it. It's often said that a graduate couldn't find their backside with both hands in a map. So it's going to be a cost to my business to take on a graduate. There's direct recruitment and training costs. There is government red tape. To take on even a graduate is going to cost me between $30,000 and $50,000. That's a hell of an investment to take on an unknown quantity. And so when you're going through this process, you have to be able to show a potential employer that you are worth an investment of $30,000 to $50,000. So think of yourself as a business, I said, and make you, right, it's all on the screen. Make yourself, right. Stereotypes. Now, I'll put it right up there. Every single person in this room, I say pointing a shark with a freaking laser beam with it, every person in this room has a stereotype associated with them. It doesn't matter whether you're from a non-English speaking background, it doesn't matter whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're young, whether you're old, there is a stereotype associated with you. You need to simply be aware of what are the stereotypes that are going to apply to you so that you can address them, so that you can challenge them head on and you can overcome what it is that's going to relate to your particular circumstance. So the assumption for graduates is simply that you're a pool of a commodity. You more or less have the same skills. Right? At university, and I want to say this to you right up front, at university you have not learned any skills. You have learned a language. You have learned a language so that when you go into my workplace straight out of university, you can learn what I do and learn how to do the work that you need to do for me. But you haven't actually learned any useful skills that are going to help me do my job. A bit sad after 4 years, isn't it? It was a bit heartbreaking when I learned that. So it's all going to be assumed that as a commodity, you more or less have the same skills. You more or less have the same experience, more or less none. You're all going to be assumed to be keen. Granted, the Gen Y stereotype is starting to work against that idea, because the Gen Y stereotype says, yeah, look, maybe keen, maybe a little bit disenfranchised, and certainly with this high expectation of how you're going to be treated. Be aware of the stereotype. I'm not advocating any stereotypes here. I'm merely saying that if you are aware of them, you can confront them. So I apologise if I don't sound PC today, but what I am trying to do is help. And it will be assumed that you will be somewhat disruptive until you settle in. Now, in my case, I was extremely disruptive until I settled in because I was a prickly bastard. I didn't get on well with others. So it took a good while to knock the corners off young Dave. He wasn't a good employee. So your degree is just where you start, and you need to be able to distinguish yourself from that horde of pretty much faceless commodity that's all around you. But it is possible, right? I'm scaring you a little bit, but it is possible. And actually, it's surprisingly easy. Okay, Dr. No. PhDs. How many of us have PhDs or are studying PhDs? One. Really? I don't have any PhDs in the room. Oh, that's disappointing. I love watching little faces crumble. Okay. Any of you thinking about studying a PhD? Right, that's better. All right. Look, a PhD is not a bad thing, but you need to plan ahead. Is it what you want? Is it going to give you the career that you want? Okay? A PhD is not a bad thing, but you need to be aware that in commercial terms, a PhD can be a negative, okay? Because you get to your age, let's say 24, 25, something like that, having finished your PhD, you're coming out with no industry experience and facing people the same age as you who have 3 years of industry experience. Which one is the employer going to pick? As if I give a rat's patootie about some tiny esoteric branch of new chemistry. I don't. It's not going to be applicable to my job. So in terms of saying, yeah, I got all this great experience in this infinitesimally small branch of new research that I did, it's not going to be applicable to 99.9% of jobs, and it's not going to work in your favour. Plus, there is this stereotype that says PhDs are going to expect more seniority faster, they're going to expect more money faster, and they're going to expect to be treated with greater respect early in the piece. And respect in the Australian workplace is not given, it is earned. America's slightly different. You get a doctor in front of your name and everyone will kowtow to you a little bit, right? But this is Australia. We are a non-hierarchical workplace and you do not get given respect. It doesn't matter whether you're managing director getting parachuted in or whether you're PhD coming straight out of university. Respect is earned. I'm sure you guys know this. I'm sure you have people in your life who, let's say we don't necessarily respect them quite as much as we would according to their title. Okay? So, the point that I'm trying to get to is be aware of the stereotype. Plan ahead. If you're going to have to be facing coming out of a PhD, and you want to do a PhD, it's not a bad thing, but you want to do a PhD, then try to plan ahead. Try to work commercial aspects into your PhD so that when you come out, you can say, you know, I've fostered commercial networks. I've done some industry-relevant work. I have done some consulting work. Often that can be worked into a PhD. Anything that gives you linkages and networks into the commercial world, something that's going to facilitate your transfer, okay? I'm not saying don't do a PhD, I'm saying be aware of it. Plan ahead. And certainly, I highlighted in yellow, develop and use your networks. That PhD, now you're not sitting on your hands, you're not wasting your time, but you have time when you're doing a PhD. You have time to spend that time developing your networks. You have potentially 3 years to get the jump on other candidates by using that time to develop your networks actively. And that can work in your favour. Because networks are king, and we're going to talk about networks in a minute. All right. What are employers actually looking for? Now this is a really interesting survey that was done. Employers were actually asked to rank what were their most important things when they're looking for graduates. And far and away, interpersonal skills. Of course, because you're a commodity. You don't have skills. All you have is your personality, your drive, how well you're going to fit into the team. So of course, I'm completely unsurprised that the first thing they're looking for is how well are you going to get on with my team? How much disruption are you going to cause when you come into my workforce? And how well are you going to be able to communicate with the people around you? Passion, knowledge, right? Yeah, of course. I would expect that of a young person. Right? Critical reasoning and analytical skills, incredibly useful. Academic results, yeah, right. So you can see how they're getting down the line. As if, right? Because very quickly, nobody is ever going to look at your academic transcript. Let's say you're 2 years out. That's the last time anyone ever going to look at your academic transcript. In fact, when I joined the Royal Australian Chemical Institute a couple of years ago, and I did so with the intention of giving back to the thing, they actually said, can you provide us a copy of your academic transcript? No, I don't have. No idea where it is. I've moved 6 times. I've got to, it's gone in one of those moves. You just have to trust me. Either you believe I went to university or you don't. Work experience. Work experience is down the list because we don't really expect that you'll have it. But obviously, if you have good industry-relevant work experience, then great. And remember, industry-relevant doesn't mean that you have worked, or you want to go in the water industry, doesn't mean you've worked in the water industry. It means that you have developed skills in some fashion that will be relevant to the role that's being asked of you. Working at Macca's might have skills that are useful for a given job, right? I'm going to skip down to the last one. 10, leadership skills. I highlighted this one as being number 10 because this is a classic young graduate track. I cannot tell you how many graduates come out of university emphasising their leadership skills. Oh, I was in I don't know, Scouts, and I was in all sort of leadership stuff, or I was in some youth group. I cannot tell you how much I don't care. I don't need you to tell me that you have leadership skills. There's no one to lead. You're the bottom of the rung. That's it. There's no one below you but floor. There's no one to lead. And the fact that you're talking to me about your leadership skills just says to me, Christ, is this someone who's going to start trying to boss around the people around them and cause trouble? No. Leadership skills are preposterously unimportant to me. Of course, once you get into the workplace and you start showing me your skills and you start showing me how well you work with the people around me and how you can actually subtly start to work with them to guide them, then absolutely your leadership skills will become evident to me. But I don't need you to tell me up that front. All somebody putting a leadership skills in their resume or in their interview with me says is, you're not ready for the workplace. You don't really know what it is that's expected of you in the workplace. Internships. Now this is a question I get asked a lot. Should I do an internship to help pave the way into the workforce? Have any of you considered this and looked at these options? No? Great. I have a philosophical problem with internships. I dislike the idea of taking someone's labour without rewarding them for it. So I don't do it. I believe that every business transaction should be a win-win. If it's not a win-win, it's not sustainable business. And that doesn't matter whether it's an employee-employer relationship, it doesn't matter whether it's business to business. It's got to be a win-win. I believe that without the give and take, you're at serious risks of negative outcomes. So, you know, you might be desperate for that work, but you get into the workplace and you find that, you know, look, actually it's not leading anywhere where you had hoped that it would. And you start to become disillusioned and you badmouth that employer, it's bad for everybody involved. Right? So I don't do it. It costs time and money to train someone. If I'm going to train someone, then I bloody well want to keep them. So why would I just have an internship, train them up, and then send them on their merry way? It's just not worth it to me. So my advice is, I'm not saying don't do internships. I'm saying if you do an internship, look at the quality of the program. Make sure that you have a mutual understanding of exactly what you are both going to get out of this. And do it with your eyes wide open. Don't do an open-ended one. Anyway, that's my views. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Have I skipped it? Yes, Jess.
With the internships, sort of you're coming from like an employer perspective. So if someone has an unpaid internship on their resume, is that a negative aspect to you?
No, absolutely not. Any experience is good experience, right? But will I value it so much that it, you know, it's a big cost to you to work for 6 months without pay.
Oh, we have to do an internship as part of for engineers.
Right, except that most internships that you do for that sort of thing would be paid, might be lowly paid. I'm talking about, you know, particularly the free internships. Mm-hmm. But we all have to do industrial experience, right? I had to do it as an undergrad. God, I hated that. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind working for little money. I just hated the particular situation. So look, yeah, we all have to do internship. We all have to do work experience, but that's different from an internship per se. Okay, internships are usually, they often are with larger companies rather than smaller companies, and an internship is usually a specifically unpaid position for a long to indefinitely long period of time in which they promise you that you're going to get experience in the area. They usually treat you like crap because they're not paying you, so they don't care whether you come or go. Very often, the outcomes, the person will actually come out disillusioned. That's what I dislike about internships. Okay, so
this is at the end of your degree, as opposed to...
Yeah. So as example, the classic one is fashion industry. What was that movie, Devil Wears Prada? If we've seen that, you know, where Anne Hathaway comes in and she's treated awfully by, was it Meryl Streep? That's a classic internship, right? Now, of course, not everything is as bad as the fashion industry, but... And it was exaggerated for movie purposes, but you would be surprised at how little it was exaggerated. Okay? Right, let's break for a minute. Yeah, as I say, it's a significant minority. Let's say 30% of employers will actually say, don't send me a PhD. It's for those negative reasons. Now, for most of them, if you approach it right, you'll get past the block edge. But I have once had an employer who said, I don't care how good the candidate is, don't send me one with a PhD. Who literally, I called him up and I said, look, I've got an absolutely perfect candidate for you. The only thing that he doesn't tick is that he has a PhD. And I said, no, don't want to see it. But that's rare. All I would say in anything, and I mean, look, the reason I single out PhDs is because I get asked about it all the time, so I might as well address it. But whether it's a PhD, whether it's your gender, whether it's the fact that you're an international student and therefore people are going to be looking for what's your visa status, whatever it is, as long as you've planned for it, you're going to be okay. No difference whatsoever. Oh, look, no, I shouldn't say that. If you've done an honours, it at least says I've got some experience with self-directed work and I've got some experience with going out and doing research, because every job, no matter what your job is, involves some research. Now, young Ian, you worked for me for a while. A big part of what I asked you to do was go out and find information for me, wasn't it? Doesn't mean that you were doing academic research. It just meant that I was saying, go out and find me sources of zinc for this. The process for going out and finding something, whether it's academic or whether it's non-academic, is the same. So, yeah, fine, yeah, it has that advantage. But what you do for your honours project really doesn't matter. And one of the things that I'll talk about along the way is how do you go about choosing an honours project? Is there anyone here who has not yet got to an honours and who would actually like to know that? Right, how do you choose an honours project? So tell me to shut up when you're ready, but how do you do an honours project? It doesn't matter one little tiny bit what you do. What matters is, firstly, that you can articulate clearly what the goal of the project is and how you're going to get there so that the project can actually be successful. Secondly, having got there, it's vitally important that you are able to clearly articulate what you achieved in your honours project, and ideally how that fits in a commercial setting. Okay, if it does, but ideally you can sort of say, look, I'm not saying I generated $1 million worth of stuff. No, nobody will believe that. Graduate honours projects aren't worth the paper they're written on. What they're worth, what they are, is the process of doing them. Thirdly, that your academic, that your what's the word for it? The person who guides you. Supervisor. Thank you very much. Sorry. That your supervisor, you get along, that they are sufficiently available for you to communicate with as you go through the process. Ideally, you get along well with them, right? They can be an excellent mentor over the course of time. And a very, very, very distant last is what the actual topic is. Because the chances are that the topic you do for an undergraduate will have absolutely nothing to do with what you go on. So who cares? Right? What matters is the other things, that you can clearly articulate what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, and then what you actually achieved. And I will say I was 0 for 4 on my on my honours project. It wasn't clearly articulated what I was trying to do, it wasn't clearly articulated how I was going to do it, and it wasn't clearly articulated what I achieved at the end. To this day, I don't know whether I came up with a brilliant breakthrough or whether it was so freaking obvious that nobody had ever thought to write about it. And my supervisor spent four of the 7 months overseas. So,
any more questions?
Well, when you mentioned that employers do look at social media and things like that,
yes.
Is it best to be upfront about how you are in your personal life and potentially even distinguish that from your professional career?
Are you saying that I go out and get wasted every Saturday night?
Well, not in that respect, but you might have friends who post inappropriate things to you, or you might post the occasional thing that may be viewed inappropriate to the public, but is an inside joke with your friends.
Simple answer: don't. I'm sorry, there's just no better answer. There is no way it cannot harm you, and it's there forever. Right? I know you keep hearing it, but you do it now, you think it's funny now. 10 years from now, you're still going to think it's funny? 10 years from now, is it going to be counting against just... No. Yeah. Right. Melissa? Yeah. It's as simple as this. With any stereotype, whether it's Gen Y or something, confront it. Walk into the employer and say, look, I know I'm Gen Y. I know the perceptions of Gen Y. This is why I'm not. Right? And here is the behaviour in my past that shows why I'm not. It's as simple as that.
So, one last question. Research projects are undertaken during the undergraduate studies, or maybe do a couple of months or a couple of weeks. Are they of any value to employers?
You mean internal to the university or outside in the world?
Either.
Internal to the university, yeah, maybe. Outside in the world, yeah. Yeah, every bit of experience you can get outside in the real world is good.
So you talked about like getting experience to get a job, and that is very required for an employer looking at you. What do you think of TAFE courses, like over on this program? So you say you're stuck at that 6-month mark, and you can't find a job,
Right.
and you want to get some practical experience. What do you think about? What do you think about?
At that point, I would, yeah, sure. I mean, there's no harm in TAFE. There'll always be a certain snobbish element of any society, and a certain snobbish element will go down on TAFE, but there's also plenty of employers who say, look, good on you for getting out there and just trying to round it out. Particularly if you're doing something vocational, if you're going out and doing, lab tech skills or something like that, just building it up, sure. It's not going to harm. Anything is better than straight unemployment. Anything is better than just sitting on your backside. But what I would be cautious about doing is doing a TAFE in lieu of looking for work. Don't do any further study with the expectation that that alone is going to break the deadlock. It's not. It's got to be in combination with something.
So when do you reckon a young graduate start looking for a job? Should they start looking at
4 months before they graduate. 4 months before their final exams.
Another question. Do you look on the breaks in the employment on the CV?
Yes. Yes, I do. So look for the gaps in the resume. Yes, you do. Yes. And the corollary you were saying?
Sorry?
You're starting to say, do I also look for?
So is there a way, is CV a place where you can actually shortly explain what we're doing about
Sure, sure. I mean, particularly if it was something positive. Okay, I mean, I took a gap year and went and studied and I got it out of my system. Sure. Right? The world is not unforgiving. The world will, somebody who's, particularly somebody who did a year and then went to university, like took a year's gap and then went to university, I will respect that infinitely more, right? Because I tell you, you will get so much more out of university if you've had a little bit of real world experience, even if that's been bumming around Europe, okay? Nobody says that you can't live your life, right? Similarly, if you are a woman who has taken off time to have a child, fact is a fact. Get it out there. If an employer isn't going to have you because of it, then it's not the sort of employer you want to work for anyway, right? Because trust me, if they're going to screw you over at that point in your life, they're going to screw you over on something else. Yeah, the best predictor of future behaviour is past behaviour, and that goes for the employer too. If it's jail time, I'd think twice. Never lie on your resume. Never lie on your resume. Do you know how easy it is to get caught? And do you know what it does? It doesn't just lose you the job, it gets you utterly fucking blackballed. It really does. The word gets around. Oh, man. Yeah, don't. And you don't need to. You just don't need to. Yeah, right.
Have you ever had people blatantly lie?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, lied about qualifications, lied about experience, lied about all sorts of things. And I had one, I was ready to give him the job, but there was something niggling at me. I couldn't understand just this, like you were talking about the gaps, right? The way his resume was put. And finally he came clean. He was an immigrant who had come to Australia. So what a lot of people do is they come from, say, India, they go to New Zealand, they get themselves a PhD, because it takes 3 years, and if you've lived in New Zealand for 3 years, you get to become a New Zealand citizen. Then they get on the first plane and come to Australia, right? It's a massive backdoor to Australia. Fair play to them, not criticising. My whole family are immigrants. I understand wanting to come to a better place. But, of course, employers recognise this. And so it can make it harder for them, right? And particularly because I've already said that getting a PhD in Australia is not always, having a PhD in Australia is not always good. So this particular guy had claimed that he... Anyway, he'd screwed with his time to try and hide, to try and mask the fact that the way he'd come here. Now, I was ready to give him the job up until the point that I realised that. But the second I realised he lied, I can't give him the job. As much as I like him, I can't forgive lying. It's not up to me. I can't go to my boss and say, oh yeah, this guy lied on his resume, but I hired him anyway.
I don't know, not paid, it's not
leave a gap in your resume. I don't know.
You said
I've seen it. Yeah, no.
having a PhD.
Yeah, no. But see, what I would do is I'd confront the prejudice rather than lie about my past. Yeah, dishonesty is it's never the best policy. It's as simple as that. I'd much rather confront the prejudice and approach it right than come at the other way. You run the risk. Absolutely. Dishonesty is dishonesty, and it leaves a massive black mark against you. It's just. Yeah, I know, but you're saying I misrepresented myself to get the job, and now I'm going to come clean. It's just. I mean, hell, if you were a cross-dresser, turn up in, and that's your thing, then turn up in drag. If it's going to count against you, you don't want to work for them anyway. Never happened to me.
Highlighted good points from everything, so
Yeah.
even if you don't want PhD, you just can put it in the way it's an advantage.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
talk about what you were doing, but the skills you got, or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thinking or something like this, I don't know.
Yeah, and come across it. Look, I know these are the perceptions about PhDs, and this is why it doesn't apply to me. Sorry, you wanted to ask a question.
Just on the topic of references, although you may be
Yeah. Yeah.
shouldn't even tackle
Yeah.
this later, but do you have any advice on choosing referees and that kind of thing? Or is that something you're planning on going into?
I don't actually have it in my thing, but I suppose I should. Advice on choosing referees. Professional referees are best, academic are next, personal are last.
And would you suggest it's wise to put those people on your resume? Or
Generally, no. What I do is I say referees available on request, and then depending on what the job is, I pick the referee that's best for that job, and then I call the referee and say, may I provide your details for this job? Tell them about the job so that they're expecting the call and it doesn't come out of the frickin' blue. The number of times that I've had people put their referees on the thing and you call them up and they say, oh, who's that person? Oh, they worked for me, 6 years ago or something. Like, are you...
Sometimes it's hard. I do that for my resume, and then all the online things where I had to apply and put my type out my resume in separate boxes. You had to put the references in there. You couldn't.
Yeah, sometimes that's the case. And,
so then they look at it a year later because they never looked at it straight away, and then suddenly.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I talked about dirty tricks. One of the dirty tricks that some recruiters do is they advertise jobs that don't really exist just to flush out, just to fill out their database. That is illegal, but it happens, and, look, you'll get a sense pretty quickly of the ones who are reputable and the ones who aren't, and it's as simple as that. And there's no obligation on you to deal with people who aren't dealing straight with you.
I've got a question. So in your experience as a recruiter, and you're faced with a pile of 400 resumes to go through, what are the main reasons you'd only spend like 30 seconds on one resume as opposed to, is it that they don't stand out, or is it that they're not very good?
No, it's 90 seconds on every resume. So I will do a single pass, whether it's 100, whether it's 400, I'll do 90 seconds on each one, right? And then I'll put them in a pile. Rejected, maybe, yes. Then the yes pile, I'll go back through more carefully and I'll spend 4 or 5 minutes on it. Now, God, how do you... I mean, that's such a difficult question to answer. It all comes down to, is what's in the resume relevant to the job that I'm advertising? Have they tailored it for the job? When I had one the other day, somebody sent me a resume that said, my career goal, because people love to put this career goal shit, my career goal is to get a job with this company. No, it's not. No, it's not. You'd never heard of this company before today. That's just a stupid thing to say in your resume. I don't know. I'll think about that one. I'll see if I can include something in the next time, how to get your resume noticed. But again, I don't do a lot of resume stuff because there's so much information online. And that's the other thing, LinkedIn. All these people write for LinkedIn. There's these amazing resources. Every few days, I print out something from LinkedIn related to job stuff that I put into a folder so that I can talk to you guys about it. The networking stuff came from 3 or 4 LinkedIn posts plus a Google search. Right? How do you go about networking? Right? That's where it comes from. The beauty of the internet is everything is online, and it's not all naked ladies.
during the pandemic,
3 pages. That's your resume, 3 pages. So you've got to be succinct. You start with your contact details, your education, your primary skills, then your experience. Under your experience, you're trying to put your jobs in terms of achievements. What did I achieve in that job? What did I learn in that job? Right? What skills did I demonstrate? What skills did I acquire? And that's the basis of a resume. It should be tailored to each job that you apply for. I know it's a pain in the backside, but it should be. And particularly your cover letter is king, right? Now, one of the things about resumes, your resumes are an opportunity to demonstrate the behaviours, okay? I need people who are careful and methodical. Spelling and grammatical mistakes are absolutely unforgivable. You've got a goddamn spell checker. So how is it that anybody sends me a bloody resume with spelling and grammatical mistakes in it? And typists, like, what the hell is wrong with these people? But I would say 3 in 10 resumes I get are riddled with errors. I can tell you they're first on the pile. I'm bloody good at spotting them. Yeah, so I don't know. Hopefully that's useful. All right.
Do we have any more questions?
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time.